gamers, Power Deal here with another Last Epoch video, and this is going to be the last update for the Ballista Falconer, at least for a little bit. We'll probably come back to it, but I'm going to be doing a kind of hardcore version, and then I have some stuff in PoE I want to explore still, and then I might do like a League of Legends Apex tier push. So yeah, this will be probably the last update for a little bit. I mean, maybe we'll do others, who knows, right? You never know. But I'm pretty satisfied with it. We got to rank 3 overall on the normal solo ladder, rank or wave 711, and then so it's the number 1 Falconer, number 2 Rogue, and no like crazy ward cheese or anything like that. We're basically just on like 2400 HP in a dream, right? We actually ended up dying because we just had like one of those Banshee type mobs pop up on me from underground, and I think one of them ate my dodge and the other one just hit me because the dodge had already gotten eaten. So I think I got overkilled by like 200 or something like that. So I can crank the health up a little bit more. There's also things you can do to kind of not be in that situation. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but I think if I was a bit more methodical, I could have squeezed a little bit more out there. So I think the ceiling for this is definitely higher, but bottom line is it's just like super strong. I was playing it in 500 corruption the other day, and it's strong there still, right? So I think it can go, this can probably go up to 1,000 at this point because the damage is really great, and the health is pretty good. You don't need to be able to survive a ton of hits, right? You just need to be able to do a lot of damage and survive kind of the one-off hit. It's not something like a slam. Like, you're never going to survive like a big slam attack from like Uber Aberoth or something in like 500 to 1,000 corruption, right? But you don't really need to survive those things because they're all avoidable. So it performs very well as long as you can avoid the huge hits. And I'll kind of take you through everything one last time, just quicker this time, and kind of talk about some things that I learned when making this character. So I think that this is going to be the helm for quite a while, because what I realized actually is that the suffixes on these, you actually do want them to be armor shred effect. And how I found that out was I was kind of just putting points back in, because I sometimes take off my T-Rex, the relic here, in order to test damage on the dummy. And so I was putting it back in, I was putting the points back in, and I hit Alt here, and I realized that this says your ballista will receive your ailment chance, duration, and effect. So this actually does, keep in mind of things like armor shred effect. So you can actually get that on your relics, and it will work. So I think when I come back to this later on, the thing that I'm going to focus on is trying to get like perfect relics, because there's a lot of damage left on the table there. Because we have crit on these, which isn't bad, but we're way over crit cap already, right? So there's a lot of damage being left on the table. Imagine if you had like 50 to 75% armor shred effect per relic, right? Now, our armor shred right now is not terrible, but still it's just kind of like free extra damage, right? So I think that would be really helpful. So that's a big thing. Obviously, I had mentioned before that for the altar, you want to use a Pyramid 1 late game, but I don't think that I'm going to be using one of those for a long time, because, I don't know, it's just really hard to find the idols to go in it, right? Because they don't drop a ton. Maybe when I farm a lot more later on, I'll bump into them more, but I don't really see it right now. So, yeah, that's kind of the situation with the idols and the altars. In terms of this, I think this is a little bit fraudulent. It depends on what you're doing, right? So in monos, it's actually quite good, I feel like. In something like Arena, the issue that I have with this is that I don't know that the roar is really that consistent, because it seems to roar more when it's like actively in combat, and it's hard for it to be actively in combat when you're kind of blasting everything, right? So the uptime maybe not as great as you would want it to be. And I think this was a kind of a thing last season, because this was +3 to minion skills, right? So it got nerfed, and is +1 skills the end of the world? Well, not really, but the fact that it was already kind of maybe borderline is something to think about. So honestly, I think when I make the hardcore version, I might try for the glove primordial unique, which I'll show you guys. Where is it? Somewhere, yeah. So this one, and the idea here is that this has really great built-in mana and mana regen if you get a decent roll, and then you basically get +2 from your relic. So what you would do is you would use a Melvin's Writ here as the relic, right? So you would get, about like 90% minion bow damage, right? Which goes straight to your bow, and then dexterity, which is basically straight to your bow. It's because it gives you minion damage when converted, and then it also gives you the flat damage from the boots, right? So I think I would probably just use this, and what I would do, I would get a 3 LP, and then I would slam the +4 Ballista and 2 other mods. And the nice thing is that it should be okay to get a 2 LP one of these. Like, it won't be super easy, but I actually have one right here, right? So you get a 2 LP one of these, and it already has good mods on it with the mana and mana regen. And then on top of that, you can put 2 mods, so probably just dex and minion damage or something like that. Maybe life or hybrid life or something like that if you really wanted. And you're able to get 3 mods on the relic, which is quite nice. Potentially even more if you actually corrupt it. So I think that's really the way to go. There's also things you can do with the other primordial unique that goes in the relic slot, which buffs your what do you call it? Your idols. The thing about that with this version is that you really do kind of miss out on the plus to skills. I feel like you do get all res from that idol though, so that's something to keep in mind. So I think that's a decent option as well, but it just kind of depends on, can you make up the plus skills in other places, right? So that's how I feel about the primordial unique situation. I think for running the gloves and then running the, the relic, I think that's better than just using a primordial affix, but that's potentially an option as well. So that's something you could keep in mind, right? For the quiver, I decided to definitely go with the hunt quiver. I think that honestly, if you get like a good one of these, so it has good crit multi on the base, and then it has like, a decent lightning roll like this one, it's just too hard to really pass up. It's so much extra damage, right? It's really hard to kind of deny that, right? I just put 2 other flats on it. You could obviously do something like flat and minion damage or something like that. I think the double flat is better. And I had a pretty good quiver to slam into this, so I'm very happy with this, and this is something that I probably won't be changing. Ultimately, we ended up going with the Omnis. I spent a decent amount of time with Aberath and Uber farming the Omnis amulets, and my thought was, hey, not Omnis, what's the other one? Nihilus, sorry, yeah, Nihilus. And my thought was, okay, so it's hard to get a good one of these, right? But the good thing is that we can corrupt them, and if we corrupt them, then we'll get, eventually we'll get max stats, right? The problem is that you kind of need 2 things to happen for them to be truly good, right? First of all, you need 1 LP on them, at least, right? Because you want to put some kind of good mod. Initially I was thinking crit multi, but I actually did the testing, and minion damage was better than crit multi. Probably because we already get so much crit multi just from other sources. So obviously these things kind of all work in unison. And when you have a lot of crit multi and, you suddenly get so much crit multi that you actually, maybe you don't have as much percent damage, even though this build does get a lot of percent damage actually turned out to be better than crit multi on this amulet. So that's something to keep in mind. You always want to kind of test before you put something on a big item like an Omnis or a Nihilus. But yeah, the idea is with the Nihilus is that you need a +1, so you need to have 1 LP at least, right? Or you put it in a Nemesis and you get lucky and you get the thing that you wanted to put on. That's very unlikely though, so realistically you need a 1 LP. And then after that, the 1 LP is the one that needs to hit the corrupt that makes everything go to max, right? So it's not just like, oh, I can corrupt all the Nihiluses that I get, and eventually I'm going to hit one. The other thing too is I thought that the odds that it sets everything to max was a lot better, but on the amulet at least it seems to be 5%, and I think it's actually technically lower than that because it has to roll first whether it's a positive or a negative corruption, and then it rolls again. So yeah, it's a very kind of minuscule chance that you are actually getting max to everything on the amulet. Maybe that was intentional because they realize you have some pretty insane amulets out there, and even like just a base Omnis or a Nihilist that's max rolled is pretty damn good, right? So yeah, I think that it's really hard to get a super great Nihilist. The other problem is I like having evade on this build, and I like the idea of having 2 charges of evade, and then you have your shift. Can be really helpful in my opinion, especially when you get things that augment evade, like haste after evading and things like that. So not really being able to use your evade is a little bit annoying because the Nihilist just makes it so you lose like 20% health when you evade, which is sort of fine if you have this where is it, this allocated, but to get maximum damage you can't really have that allocated. So I don't know, if you get a really good Nihilist, it's good, right? You just play around it, accommodate for it. You could also do something where if you don't want to use the evades after you get a Nihilist, you can just use these gloves of the Fingers of the Phantom Mire. You can get these 3LP or even 4LP pretty easily. 3LP definitely pretty easily. 4LP is always going to be difficult. And it basically replaces your evade with Terrify, so you can do 15% more damage for a short window, and you have Swiftness, which is like 20-some movement speed or something like that, and they have a pretty good base because they're mana regen. So these are great gloves if you wanted, and you can kind of get most of the mods you need on them, which is great. So that's another option if you did want to use the Nihilist. You don't even have to use Nihilist to use these. You can just use these if you don't care to use evade, period. But if you wanted to solve kind of like the evade problem, and you didn't want to be losing percentage HP every time you evade, then you could just use these. The chest, I go with the Gorgon one, the one that we've always talked about. So obviously, inevitably, you want at least tier 6 Ballista, inevitably for the +2 maximum Ballista. And then after that, it's pretty much up to you. I like to have a decently high chance on the glancing here because it helps when you're putting points in other areas, right? And then I like to go health on this item because chest has the most stats points, you can think of it as, all right? That's why it has more dexterity, more health, more resistances. And with how you're going to do resistances, most likely, if you get like really high tier reses on the body armor, they're probably going to be wasted because we take the the 20 all res. Just makes things a lot easier, which means that you're basically wasting res if you get like a 70-some% res roll on the body armor. So that's why we just use this for health. And I think the max option for this is to try and seal like a 20-some res that you need. Probably it's going to be end up being cold or physical, and then you get the rest of it like this, right? So +2 Ballista, dexterity, health, and then health percent, and then that would basically be like your end game chest. And obviously, the more higher tier mods on it you get, the better. So that's something there. Obviously, we already talked a little bit about the helm. You're just trying to get maximum damage, resistances, health, whatever you need on it, right? You can get this pretty easily up to 4LP. Omnis, like I said, I think this is just the easier option to get over the Nihilist, right? Especially because you don't need all of these to really hit. Like you don't really need a ton of lightning resistance, right? You don't really need a ton of poison resistance with this build. So you can kind of get away with getting one that's imperfect, but actually sort of perfect for your build, if that makes sense. And the main thing that you want here is +2 to skills. And the cool thing is, the more of these you get, you can kind of put them into the what do you call it? Like once you kind of brick them, you can use the corrupted bricked versions to make a low rolled one, hopefully high rolled, via that Woven Echo. So yeah, I think this is just a really accessible, really great amulet, and it's super good now that it gets +2 to all skills. So I would definitely recommend this. Obviously, the boots are just, the boots, they're pretty easy. You want move speed on them for the first roll, and then what I got is percent health, or hybrid health, sorry. It doesn't really matter what you get. A resistance, a more dex is fine as well. I would say that if you're trying to like maximize your survivability, like think about it like this, right? So you can get like 8 dex on these pretty easily, right? If you just get enough 2LPs and you get enough tier 7 MSs, and then you just craft dex, and eventually you're going to get it, right? But like, you're basically getting like 32% damage from that dex, and you're gaining a little bit more than that, right? Because you're gaining some flat from it, but you're not gaining a ton of damage. This gives you quite a large amount of health and just gives you a lot more survivability, in my opinion. So in spots like this where it's going to be tight and you can only pick one, I would rather have the hybrid health. The belt here, I got lucky kind of with how it played out. So I got hybrid health on the belt, and then I put it on the I sealed it, but you'd probably want to seal percent health actually, and then max hybrid health, but just kind of how it played out on this belt. I have the crit avoidance there, and then this is a big thing that helped me, is I think you really do want this mana gained on potion use for your belt. And you could even have it go higher tier. I think this one's tier 4 right now, is it? Yeah, tier 4, tier 5. But you could have it go even higher and it would still be really good. So just minion damage and that mod, I think, is actually better than just normal mana regeneration. And you get that by just using the Woven Echo here with the mages. Where is it? Yeah. And you just get a belt and you replace the mod on the belt. You have 2 prefixes basically, and it has a 50% chance to replace one. So you have to kind of get lucky. You can brick your item in some cases, but I think it's worth it to just go and get a decent belt out of there, because it's really strong. These rings, I love the rings, right? I'll never not love this ring base. And don't be afraid to get mana regen on these. Like, ideally, you want... the ideal ring is basically, I would say, minion damage, dex, and then whatever you need on the suffixes, whether it be health, crit avoidance, resistances, right? And then what you try and do is if you can, you seal tier 1 or tier 2 mana regeneration on each ring, and that would actually give you probably enough mana regen for this to feel like, if I had tier 1 or tier 2 mana regen sealed on both of these, and I dropped the actual mana regen from them, it would probably still feel fine, right? There would still be an acceptable amount of mana regeneration, especially with the belt, because with the belt, you can always just kind of run over mana pots that your Ballista, poops out, and you'll be absolutely golden. Okay, so that's kind of how the ideal rolls on the rings, but it can be difficult to get them, right? So what I do is I just kind of, you want to make a base ring that's decent, then you kind of make clones of the base ring, and you try and corrupt them and see if you can get something cool like this, right? And then once you kind of have decent rings, you then start trying to make rings where you go for the mana regen seal. Is kind of the deal, right? We don't even have them yet in this build, but still pretty strong. Gloves, like I said, if you're not using these gloves, then, just any good pair of gloves. Got really lucky with these gloves, nothing else to say. And I think so the bow, so this is a 4LP bow that actually got the plus 40 bow damage flat, which is insane. So this is a corrupted modifier. So how the corrupted stuff works is when you corrupt something, there's a 75% chance for it to be a good corruption, and then there's like a 50% chance usually for it to get a mod from the corrupted pool if it actually hits the good corruption, and then there's like a 10% chance for it to get like a normal modifier, and then a 10% chance to get like a low tier normal modifier, and then there's other like positive effects as well. But the idea is that because this is part of the corrupted mod pool, you're tapping into that pool quite often. So getting something like plus 40 bow damage is actually not as bad. The odds of getting it are not as bad as you think. I've actually gotten it before on another bow that I corrupted. So I actually think that what you want to do in most cases, like let's say, first of all, getting a 4LP stand is not that hard. But let's say you don't play a lot, like very minimal amount, and it's just really difficult for you to get even like a 3LP, right? So what you want to be doing is 3LP shouldn't be difficult for you, actually, even if you don't play that much. Like once you get to kind of like endgame. So what you do is you just get a bunch of the bows, right? And you do the whole cycle where you put them in the Nemesis thing and see where they go. If they don't go to 3, you put them in the turtle, right? And you're trying to get a bunch of 3LP bows. And basically what you do is, and the good thing is you can constantly reuse the bows, right? So make sure you get good bases, because the bows don't get eaten like the quivers and the boots do. So when you put boots and quivers into the Nemesis, the quiver less so, the boots like quite often, it's something like an Omnis, very often, it's not going to actually get LP, because it's hard to put legendary potential on it because the legendary potential is so high. Same thing with something like these gloves, or same thing with something like the Tyrant Skull, right? So the higher the legendary potential is on the item, the harder it is to put legendary potential on it via the Nemesis, which means that if you put something else on, it now is no longer eligible for legendary potential, right? So the item is sort of bricked unless it gets a really good mod, unless you get lucky in the Nemesis. But with something like the Peak of the Mountain or the bow, it's really easy to kind of cycle them through Nemesis and the turtle, because they almost will never get something that's not a +1, because they have very low legendary potential, which means that it's very easy to get, plus on them, right? So you basically just cycle bows through the system until you get 3LP. And then what you do is you try and get 3 decent mods. And in my case, I think the ones you're really looking for are tier 7 bow damage, and then you just go tier 5 minion and bow, tier 5 crit multi, and then, or something like physical penetration works as well, right? And then once you get those mods, you try and get it on the actual bow themselves, right? Via the, the Sanctum or whatever, right? And then once you actually get one has those 3 mods that you want, or even if you kind of brick one, right, it's fine. You basically corrupt everything that you're not using, because getting a plus 40 bow damage corruption onto your bow will probably make whatever bow you're using your best bow. Because think about it, like let's say you're trying to get a 3LP bow. Right, I'm going to do a separate video on bows for people that don't want to wade this far into the video, but let's say you have a 3LP bow. And let's say you don't even hit the things that you want to hit on it. So you have 48 bow, right? You lock that in, right? Because that's your tier 7 bow damage. But let's say you get your crit multiplier, but then you get something else you had in the bow, like chill or something like that, right? So you have 48 bow and 44 crit multiplier for your damage stats, and then you have chill. Well, if you corrupt that bow and you hit plus 40 bow damage, now all of a sudden it's basically like you were using a kind of like bad 4LP without a corrupt, or maybe like a really good 3LP with an okay corrupt. You can also get something like, I think 35 crit multi, or maybe even higher. So, don't be afraid to corrupt this item specifically once you slam it, and it's not the one that you're currently using, because you can get really great results from just slamming and corrupting a bunch of these, even if they're just tier 3. So yeah, that's a way to get kind of like almost cheat the power curve a little bit that you couldn't do last patch because corruption was not in last patch. So very, very strong. And I think we covered everything there. For the idols, like I said, you just want crit multi and then armor shred effect, and then you have enough crit on them to make it so that you're not below crit cap, obviously, right? Then for the effect, crit multi is great. Crit and crit multi is always great. And then I have some of these, obviously, that have just haste effect, which can be good as well. Then for these other ones right here, basically just whatever you need. Ideally, you're going to want stuff with like resistances, and there's another mod, it's mana and mana regen. So you could get like 5% mana regen, 12 mana, and then 12 minion cold resist on something like this. That would be ideal. We don't have really good like mini relics right now, or mini idols, so do your what do you call it, your tombs, and pay attention to what drops, because they're actually very powerful, the ones from the tombs, right? You can see this one gives like 2 physical pen by itself while giving you resistances, right? So if you get like an actual good combination, these are very powerful. I use something like this altar, and it has 50% effect to prefixes. So basically, like both of these, these are getting like 50% on each set of prefixes. So we're basically getting like 50 crit multi from these 2 being in this altar, which is insane. So yeah, that's pretty much how we do the altar stuff. The blessings, you want all the offensive blessings you can get. So shred, physical shred, minion damage, then crit multiplier, and then for this slot, for the Lagan one, there's not a ton of great offensive things anyway, so we just take the mana, which gives us a nice buffer, right? Because what the mana does is it allows us, if we're in a situation where we don't have access to mana potions right around us that we can spam, we can basically just dump all of our totems in one area, do aerial assault, get them all up and running, doing max damage. Then we just run to a different part of the arena or the monolith, and then we stock up on potions there, and we get our mana back, right? So it's not that like people would look at this and they'd be like, oh, it's useless having just flat mana because it doesn't really do anything to your mana regen, which is really what you need. But the reality is that, first of all, it actually does give you a little bit better mana regen, because we take this node on aerial assault, which is based on your missing mana, right? Which is based on your max mana. So there's that. But on top of it, it's really just to give you a buffer to be able to survive better. When I actually do monolith, a lot of times I'll come, if I'm just doing mono for a big period of time, I'll come over here and put this into ward per second. But when I go do something like arena or Uber Aberoth, like something that is going to require a bit more effort, and I want to make sure that even in the worst case scenario, I'm basically covered, right? And like even in a scenario where I'm like the chips are down, right, and I'm in a bad spot, I have that bit of extra mana to rely on. So I'll spec into this for something like Uber Aberoth and in arena. So it's less important in arena. It's very important in Uber Aberoth because he destroys your ballistas constantly. You need to resummon. It's less important in arena, but I still think it's better to have the ability to have more ballistas out, because more ballistas is more defense. In arena, you want to be running like 6 ballistas almost constantly if you can. So yeah, that's pretty much how that goes. The skills, I'll kind of just talk about what I did with this. I took out this because I just feel like you don't need it. It doesn't help you. And if you want to, like, it's fine to take this, guys, right? Especially if you don't have crit avoidance, okay? Then obviously taking it's good. But ideally late game, getting crit avoidance on another suffix and then removing the points here is great, because it allows you to kind of max out or come close to maxing out things like concentration. And again, you want at least 5 points in this. I wasn't doing this for a while, but you do get the armor shred effect, remember. So you absolutely want that. You want 4 points in this for the less damage taken. You want 5 out of 5 in this because it's just an insane node. And then, basically everything you see here, you can just copy it. This is the same as the planner before. I'm just updating you on the changes, right? So basically just, put more points in this, more points in this. If you need to, take some points out of this, right? This is something where the only value you're really getting by putting more points over 5 here is if you're not already at 100% glancing, then this can help you get there. Otherwise, it's not like a huge deal, right? Because this node, is going to have you double glancing, right? So it kind of has a multiplicative effect with nodes like this because you're getting 2% glancing per point, right? So just something to keep in mind there. Yeah. And I'll go through the trees really quick so you can just see what I put. This one doesn't really matter. The main thing I do for the Falcon is the regen, the mana back, the Falcon Strike's damage, the ailment application. That's the main things you have to worry about. So everything that increases your cull, your Falcon damage, and your Falcon Strike damage, right? Aerial Assault, just make sure you get the Ballista thing. Make sure you get the regen here. I don't like it as a traversal skill, so I take this, but if you want to use it as your traversal, that's fine. Just don't take this. Dive Bomb, I don't like taking this because I like the cooldown shorter, especially in Monolith. In Arena at high levels, this would be maybe better to take because it can kind of still one-shot really strong packs. So this is something that I probably should have messed around with a little bit more. Also, Decoy can be good in Arena as well, right? So, yeah, just keep that in mind. I didn't use Decoy for my run. Probably a mistake, but that wasn't really why I died, right? So I'm going to go in when I eventually do my run way later on in the future, then I'll probably do a more optimized version. Shift, basically, I like the invuln. I like the cleanse, obviously. This is obviously good just in case you get in a tight spot, right? You want the mana efficiency and the cooldown recovery speed. You want the movement speed after using it. And if you have something that gives you like ward for popping a shadow, it's definitely worth taking a point out of this and putting in here. But I just don't have anything like that currently on me, so it gives you just a little bit of extra survivability there. And yeah, I think that's basically everything that we covered. So yeah, really strong. Like I said, 500 to 1,000 corruption, performs just fine, and there's really no reason to go over that anyway, right? It can do Uber Aberoth, normal Aberoth. I haven't actually done the Omen fights or whatever, but I'm sure it can do that as well. Yeah, just great build, and like I said, rank 3 on the normal ladder here, where is it? And then rank 2 rogue, and we could have definitely pushed higher, right? And rank 1 falconer. Basically, you see that it's all blade dancer, basically, right? Why is it only showing like rank 16? It's not showing anything. That's weird, but it's basically all blade dancers, right? And then you see a falconer finally down here. So we're like the highest falconer by like 500 waves or something like that. It's a really strong version of the build. Really fun. And yeah, thanks for watching. This, like I said, this is probably going to be the final updated version for a little bit. If you have any questions, just leave them in comments of any of the videos is fine, but this one's the most recent, so just try and leave them here, and I'll respond to you guys. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a hardcore version of this, which is going to be new tech, I think, so it'll be interesting for you guys to watch. I'm going to try and do the hardcore arena here and get rank 1 on that. I think this should be pretty easy on hardcore solo. I think I can get this really easily. It is sort of dangerous. Things that this this wave can still kill you for sure. Even in the version that I'm playing right now, you can still actually die at wave 200. There are things, so, and I'm not just talking about like slams and really obvious stuff. There's some nasty stuff in the arena, but I think we can do this for sure. I think we can get much higher than this, probably at least 400 if I would assume, but we'll have to see. Right, so I think I'm going to try and do that, and then I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go back and do some PoE stuff I still want to do. I have some stuff I want to do in the new league there, and then maybe we'll do like a League of Legends Apex tier push, and then maybe come back to this, or maybe I'll come back to this before I play League, it depends. But thank you guys for watching. It's been really fun playing this season and coming back into the game and like learning a bunch of things. I definitely learned a lot. There was so much I had to learn from like not playing last season and not playing much the season before, but it's been really fun. And yeah, that's why I want to make the hardcore character, actually, because I've just been having a good time. So thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, more content coming soon, and I'll probably stream the hardcore stuff. I might start tonight. I'm probably gonna eat, and then I might start doing that, and I'll probably be streaming tomorrow and throughout the week. So yeah, probably be back in like an hour or so. And thanks again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.